Hello, my name is Judy, and this is assignment 1.3 Performance Patterns. I had a friend come to me who has been training for a triathlon, and they were asking about a possible better training plan and just some statistics about it. So I went in and I did some research. As far as the racing goes or characteristics, there's just so much that goes into it. With the variables, you have age, previous experience, sex, training, origin, just physical build and characteristics, pacing, and performance. With the age levels as far as peak, it's kind of interesting here. You have the statistics for a half Olympic distance and Ironman races. For the Ironman, it's around 35 years of age. So I was surprised on how high that was. Off to the right here, you can see the Kona World Championship averages for the top 10 finish. The Kona World Championship in Hawaii is a championship for overall Ironman. So people try and qualify in different Ironman events throughout the world to come to Kona. With this information here, you can see the average swim time is 52:28. Bike average is 4 hours 19 minutes. Run average is 2 hours 58 minutes. So that is a lot of work. 5 strong correlations with finishing place. Some information looking into it. Some keys here are to get a good start in the swimming section. Maintain a good personal pace. Conserve energy during the cycling event. Draft when possible, finish strong in the run. The quickest divisions for the male and female were again 30 to 34 for the age, and the time completion for the males was 10 hours 18 minutes, and the females was a little over an hour difference. So that was also interesting to me. For these correlations, I'll explain more in depth why these are important keys. Common training mistakes that people make: not training progressively, training in no man's land, not working on technique, ignoring weaknesses, and not getting enough recovery. So looking at some different aspects, training progressively, you don't want to do the same thing every week. You want to progressively increase to get ready for that Ironman competition. But another point is you need to get enough recovery time. You need to build recovery time within your performance plan to be able to let your body rest. Working on technique, one of the main big things that I found out is, it makes sense, is you want to conserve energy during this long endurance race event. So technique is very important, so you're not using unnecessary energy during your race. So technique is super important. Another one, ignoring your weaknesses. So everybody has their strengths and weaknesses with their swim, bike, or run. Don't ignore those. You need to go ahead and focus and work on those weaknesses so you can bring up your overall time and not just think your strength is going to pull you through overall. A likelihood that the fastest swim time will be the winner. It's imperative, looking at the results, that you need to have a good swim time to get out in the front of the pack to have a good chance of winning the triathlon overall. So the results suggest that the triathlon swim leg is important because the winner exited the water in the first pack in 90% of elite male and 70% of elite female races. The reason for this is transitioning into the cycling event, these people would stay together and draft. Drafting is hugely important, again, going back to conserving energy. So they need to try and stay together in that first pack. In long distance triathlon, time spent during the cycling and running race were significantly related to overall race time. This just points out that the swim time is usually the smallest overall compared to the bike and the run time. In 2019, Kona had 1,513 male participants. The likelihood of the fastest swimmer winning is 1 out of 1,513, or 0.07% chance. The likelihood of being the overall winner is also the same, 0.07%, but the likelihood of winning the swim or the bike stage and overall would be multiply those together, and you can see you have a pretty low chance. So these are independent variables. Just because you win one leg doesn't mean you're going to be winning the second leg or third leg. Correlations for progressively going through the stages. For men, the average correlation for finishing order with each of the swim, cycle, and run respectively, or 0.49, 0.67, and 0.86. And for the women, the average correlations were 0.39, 0.67, and 0.85. What does that mean? It's indicated that it was important to exit the water in the first pack and run well after the cycling event to achieve a successful finishing position. For the bike event, it takes up about half the time of the race. As I mentioned before, drafting is hugely important. Some races allow it, some don't. But if you can draft or shield yourself behind another rider, you're going to save up to 30% of your energy. So just like truckers do, or any number of things, you're just increasing or reducing the amount of energy needed to expend to go that speed for that distance of time. Probability of the first person out of the water or off the bike winning the race, second person, third person. The probability of a person placing in the triathlon after completion of the first or second event is an independent probability that does not affect one or the other. The first person out of the water doesn't change the chance of winning the race statistically because they're independent. Some are stronger in one event than the other, so they know their weak event is going to be swimming, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't come back. The biggest variance in times or the swimming event and the running event. Biking is kind of a middle ground where there aren't going to be many places in being changed during that time. But as far as some other probability stuff, pro athletes are rated by the Kona Pro ranking, so ranking like 1 through 100. And then they have odds for each person to win the race. In 2015, the odds for a male outside of the KPR 50 was 100 to 1. So that means if there are 100 races conducted, the chance of someone outside that top 50 would be they'd win one of them out of those 100. KPR, if they're ranked 1 through 5, they had different odds between 12 to 1 and 2 to 1. So one of the guys was 2 to 1. He was a very heavy favorite to win for that year. The final finishing order was determined more by the run than either the swim or the cycle. The biggest thing at that point was fatigue. So your fatigue and endurance during the run will be a factor in determining the final race outcome at that stage of the event. It may be that one can make up more places during the run and thus emphasize the importance of running performance. So again, this is where you have the bigger variance in times. It can make or break someone. A quick calculation to help someone figure out how long it's going to take them to run the running portion. The average marathon was equal to swim plus bike time multiplied by 0.6. So example of that, if you start a marathon run with 7 hours elapsed in your race, your marathon target should be 7 hours times 0.6 or 4.2 hours, 4 hours, 12 minutes, just as a rough estimate. A lot of this comes down to race your own race. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Again, work on your weaknesses to try and bring up a better overall performance. With this chart here, there is around 22 minutes separating the minimum and maximum top 10 finishers. So that's a big gap just between first place and 10th place. And you're going to see that whatever your own race is, about time, you just kind of run your own race, and even weather is going to be a big factor. So if you start going through that race and you're behind on your pace, it could be one of those other factors such as the weather. You can see with these the bars here. 2015 was the blue and 2019 was the pink. You can see pink overall was the highest because they had high winds that year, which affected everybody's performance. You got to take that into consideration. Game plan. Athletes want to improve their performance. Position: should swim well enough to be within striking distance of joining a big cycling group, and cycle well enough to stay in the lead pack. Maximize drafting, optimize energy conservation, and then in the run, you need to be able to have that energy efficiency and the stamina to go ahead and complete and place. As I mentioned before, the biggest deviation in performance is found in those running times. Training focus: during one of the studies, it had conducted with different athletes. This is the weekly training averages in hours and kilometers and speed. So for the men, the average training per week is around 14 hours of training. That's a lot. For the swimming, you can see the average training per hour is around 2.5 hours of training. The swim distance and the speed, cycling, around 7 to 8 hours, and they're traveling at around 27 kilometers an hour, which is pretty fast. As a quick reference, 10 kilometers per hour is around 6.2 miles an hour. And then running, they'll run for about 4 hours a week at, again, around 10 kilometers per hour, so 6.27 miles an hour. Equipment. A friend asked about equipment. Everybody, all the different websites and everything were showing the same thing, that you don't need expensive equipment. Some of this coming from Team USA, just showing that you don't have to have the best. The best, if like for the biking, you have those fancy racing helmets or those discs for your wheels. They might shave off a couple seconds or maybe a couple minutes, depending. But that's only going to be effective if you're going super fast. You're going to run 25 miles an hour or more with that aerodynamics come into effect. A lot of it, everybody was saying, just you kind of wear what you already have for a swimming suit or running shoes. You just got to make sure it's something that's comfortable and will last, and keep, like with those good running shoes, for your technique and all that stuff with your feet and all that stuff. So no, you don't have to have expensive equipment. This was kind of interesting. Proposed profile of winners in triathlons when comparing statistics. I'll just again point out the men's side. They compiled all the information from various triathlons, and you can see the age around 32 to 33 years, their personal best in marathon running, weekly training for cycling, running, oxygen intake, another performance indicator, how efficient is your body running. So here's the references. Overall, it was just, again, have a good training plan, build up, make sure you have enough rest in between with that training plan, run your own race. You want to start out strong with a good swim, maintain and conserve energy by drafting in the cycling event, and then let it all out for the run for your placement. That's my presentation. Have a good day.